All right, good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to call the Door County Board of Supervisors to order on Tuesday, July 24th at approximately 9:05 a.m. Would you please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
I do in my head.
We have 20 present and 1 absent. Presentation of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The introduction.
Sure. So the next item, I can take that. I'd like to introduce the new director for the Economic Development Corporation. Jim Schuessler was selected among many qualified candidates that went through the process. And I'm very excited that we were able to get someone that's so talented and qualified. And I thought I'd introduce him today, let him provide a little bit of background, and maybe just give a little bit of update of where things are. So Jim, would you like to come up and introduce yourself?
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Now I got to live up to that.
Yeah, there you go.
My name is Jim Schuessler, and very pleased to become part of the Door County community. I grew up in O'Connell Falls, just the other side of the bay, and went to school at UW-Platteville. My first career was in television. I started it on the sales side, worked for one company for 20 years. Started on the sales side, they moved me into management, and ultimately into senior management and became CEO of the company. That career took me from pretty interesting places, from Des Moines to St. Louis to LA to Seattle. In '95, we bought Green Bay, WIUK in Green Bay, and converted that from an NBC to a Fox affiliate, just when the Packers were catching fire.
There you go. Perfect.
That was a perfect timing, and it worked out. It was very lucrative for the station. So in 2000, they brought me to corporate, and I continued to run that company until some years later we decided to start divesting stations. I had a consultancy of continuing to divest the stations for several years, and then my wife and I, my wife is also from O'Connell County, from Gillett specifically. She and I decided to move up to northern Wisconsin, and then winter was coming and I needed something to do. So in 2011, Forest County was looking to start an economic development organization, and I'd never really thought about economic development, but I looked at their job description and I thought, I've done a lot of those things, working to help people's businesses grow, and was fortunate enough to be chosen and fell in love with economic development. One of the first things I did is, based on some advice, I was sent to see Bill at Door County Economic Development. I was told that that's what an economic development organization ought to look like. That's what they look like when they're operating properly, and Bill could not have been more open and shared. And so my foundational beliefs in economic development came from, in part, the roots of what Door County economic development is. 3 years later, Sheboygan County was looking for somebody in business development, and they chose me. I was fortunate enough to be chosen there. Sheboygan County, which is where I spent the last 4 years, was a great place to focus on both strong tourism, with the amenities of Elkhart Lake, the Kohler amenities, and Blue Harbor on Lake Michigan, and a very strong manufacturing base. It's 34% of their GDP, one of the largest in the country. And I want to thank you for the Kohler fixtures that I see in the in the laboratory. Those are things we think about in economic development. Being here today, is a privilege. I'm pleased that there's a team in place to work with. That mattered a lot to me when I was determining where I would like to go next. And we do have some things to focus on. We have a 2.7% unemployment rate in May of this year. That's the last number available today. That's the lowest unemployment rate since they've been reporting it back in 1990, and that sounds great. The challenge is the workforce numbers are declining. And that's something that we have to work at, because we do have companies and businesses that can grow if we can recruit the workforce. So our goal will be to create great opportunities for the folks that already live here and recruit people to come and join us in Door County to help our businesses continue to grow. The other thing is and it's somewhat tied to it, is housing. The housing study will be reported back as soon as we can get it in a format to be reported back. I've spent a lot of time with it. There's a lot of good information there. By the way, the comprehensive plan for the county as it relates, Chapter 4 relates to housing, is excellent. And so a lot of great resource there too. So as soon as we can get that to ready format, we'll be reporting that back to all interested stakeholders along with some recommendations. I think that's probably enough for now, but I want to tell you that I'm thrilled to be part of this community. And the key to economic development is to use your ears and mouth in proper proportion. You have 2 ears and only 1 mouth. So each of you, the county is very diverse. It's not one size fits all. And so if any of you individually have issues that you want to raise, as it relates to your specific area of responsibility, please call me 920-421-3777 is my direct phone number, and I'd be pleased to engage you. And also, we're going to attempt to be back here as long as that is welcome when Kathy Schultz was part of the interview committee, Supervisor Schultz, excuse me, she made it clear they'd like to hear a little bit more from Door County Economic Development, so that was noted, and so we'll be back here to report on our progress and on anything, suggestions that you may have for us. So thank you very much. Pleased to be here.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Next item is correspondence. In your packet, you'll notice there was the unassigned fund balance. Next will be public comment. Is there anybody in our audience who would care to make a public comment? Hearing none, I have one special one. There is an event that happens in everybody's life that happens only once. Okay? And that is you turn 50. Mariah.
Oh, you were calling her.
Happy birthday.
Today?
Where's the party?
In your underlying.
I wonder why she's wearing black.
Any supervisor response to that?
I gave mine already.
Approval of the minutes of June 26, 2018 regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any questions, deletions? Biz, did you have
No, Joe wanted to know who made the second.
comments, grammatical remarks, errors, or other changes? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Pending business and updates. One quick question.
Whatever you want. The door too. That's all.
First item of business, Resolution 2018-44, Statement of Project Intention, Door County Cherryland Airport. Mr. Ninus.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-44.
Second.
Long and short story of it, this is state mandatory, and we have to submit what we call a wish list to the state and to the federal so they can set their budget. And by no means approving this would hinder Door County or have them spend any money. It's just a wish list, and it has to be out there.
Any questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution 2018, Mutual Termination Lease Agreement, Door County Medical Center, Formal Central Ambulance Station. Mr. Ostead.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution 2018-45.
I'll second
that.
I can explain it a little bit, I'll try. About 10 years ago, the county, and this was when Leo was chairman, was approached that the ambulance might have to be moved because they're going to do something with where the ambulance garage is located. And we had a 40-year lease. And So over the years, when we started talking about moving it, the hospital offered to rent us some property to put the new ambulance garage on. And we wanted to buy the property. And the county board made a decision to put the senior citizen center and the ambulance garage where it is today. And I think that was a great move for all of us. I personally, when this all started, thought we should get something from the hospital when we turned the building over to them. I have since changed my mind. I think it's a great thing for the hospital. And then when I found out that they were going to use it at NWTC for nurse training and other things, I think that we should terminate the lease and let the hospital have the building. My big question is, 40 years, do we, and if we only use 28, do we get the $12 back?
Any other questions or comments? This one will go to the voter board on. That has passed on the vote of 20 yes, 1 absent. Thank you. Resolution 2018-46, support for Insight's application for a Public Service Commission of Wisconsin fiscal year 2019 broadband expansion grant. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Would you like to explain?
Sure, I can explain. So if you recall, we actually applied for a grant, it was last year. And what we were doing is we were working with Insight last year, and they were actually looking at running a fiber line to Washington Island just on their own. And at that time, the grant application was not selected, and long story short, the cost-benefit analysis based off the cost and the benefit was not there for Insight to pursue the project. Obviously, you're aware of the items we went through recently with Washington Island in regards to the power line. And as you've heard, what they're going to do is they're going to run a new power line. And when they do that, there's now an opportunity to, while you have the crews out there, to drop a fiber line along with that. So it's one of those things where, again, a bad thing, something potentially comes up good, and this is one of those things where it could be an excellent opportunity. So again, when it happened, a lot of things happened fast, but the what's really happening is the grant application is due, I think, at the end of this month. And what we're trying to do again is to work as a partnership with Insight to apply for a broadband grant to the state. And we're suggesting that we contribute $1,000. This is the same amount that we suggested last year as part of the partnership for the grant application. And that's the purpose of why it's here today, because they need to have a resolution of support for that.
Joel, do you want to add anything?
This is a no-brainer to me. This has been a wish list item for decades.
Dave?
Just a simple clarification. I must be misreading this because it looks like the financial is potential of $2,000, or is it just a reaffirmation in line 24 through 27 of our last discussion of $1,000? Because then it's repeated again in 34 through 37.
Sorry, one second.
I think I can quick answer. That's a reaffirmation. The 24 to 27 are part of the recitals. The therefore be it resolved clauses are the 34 to 37, so it's just one $1,000 contribution.
I was hoping that's what it was. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
That is correct.
That's the intent.
Joel?
I guess I will make one comment. You know, other than the fact that this is Insight doing this, this is a benefit to everybody in the county also, because, you know, the fact that we are partners with Cellcom Insight on multiple communication things to the county, public safety, police department, everything else. This is now going to enhance the county's ability to have, you know, communications through not just the county, but also up on the island, which there's towers up there, as we all know, that connect the network of the county system. So it's phenomenal that this is an opportunity.
I have a question.
Is it?
And Joel, you can probably answer this. Will Insight be the only broadband then on the island available to anyone that lives there? I mean, I assume it's not like cable ready or anything like that, is that?
My understanding is, and again, this is only, I wouldn't even say it's 100% factual because I have not been told this personally, but Cellcom there's two cell towers on the island. There's a Cellcom tower and there's a U.S. Cellular tower. Right now, they both get all their stuff via microwave, just like the landline phone companies do. So Cellcom, to my knowledge, is going to be the proprietor of that, even though I think the co-op is going to have a working agreement similar like the county has with them. The co-op electric company will have the same sort of agreement. So how the details all get worked out will be the attorneys and the powers that be, but I couldn't answer that,
Okay.
exactly specifically, but.
That was it.
Anybody else? If not, we'll go to the voter board. That is passed on a vote of 20 yes, 1 absent. Resolution 2018-47, increase of user fees for emergency medical services. Mr. Gullington.
I'd like to bring a motion forward to approve Resolution 2018-47, please.
Second.
So I think Aaron and I are going to take team a little bit on this. So Aaron, maybe you want to come up to the podium there and back. But I just want to, I know there's been some questions, and I don't know if you heard that or not, but I just want to clarify some of the things and just to give some background so there's more comfort with what we're doing. I guess the first one is that what you see before you is a fee schedule, and we actually, if you go back in time, we actually did have fees established at one point in time for all of these services. I think the thing that might be a change is where we had the possible charges. Those eventually had dropped off the radar for what reason we're not sure of, but when we look back at the history, some of the things we're trying to add back in of what we charged for in the past. So just want to clarify that for everyone. The second item is there's been some discussion, and there's actually a lot of discussion in regards to, I guess what we call like lift assist or helping individuals stand up. And I guess one of the things that we're going to do this year, and it would be part of the policy, is that we're not charging for lift assist. It was discussed at the committee that there's, I guess, let's say certain facilities that might be abusing the system in terms of calling in and having us provide lift assist at various nursing facilities. So we're going to be working with those areas and trying to make sure that they provide the service and make sure they don't take advantage of that service. But again, I guess what we're trying to do is we'll determine, I guess, the level of service for the lift assist. But again, that's one of the areas of concern. You know, for example, if someone falls out of a wheelchair and you do a lift assist, do we actually charge them for that? That was a thing that went back and forth. But really what we're looking at is really when we provide a specific service in terms of medical treatment, and that's what this is trying to target. And obviously when you do the medical treatment, there's the two levels, which I think Aaron can describe. But again, I just want to give that background so we take off that initial apprehension of what we're trying to do. And then, I don't know if Aaron, if you want to provide any other background on that or not.
So the difference between ALS and BLS is the level of care that we're providing. ALS is advanced life support, normally involves higher level procedures, medications given, things like that. Basic life support is, you know, a step higher than first aid type stuff, but providing bandages, you know, splinting, things like that would fall into those differing categories. Some data for you, just real quick. Last year for 2017, there were 1,787 calls that we did not transport to the hospital. Currently, the way we operate today, we only charge for what we transport to the hospital. That is approximately 50% of the calls we go on. Of what we have before you for the proposed changes, what would qualify in these areas would be about 480 calls that would qualify falling into these charges here, these additional new charges, if that makes sense.
Questions? Dan?
Yes, part of it I'm totally against. The service call, if you call the ambulance right now and they come and nothing is there, nobody gets charged, correct?
Correct.
And I think to start charging people $250 when they call an ambulance might hinder people calling the ambulance, much like a fire department or the police department. If everybody knew that they're going to get charged $300-400 when they call the fire department, as we all know, fires start out small, and by the time they decide they really need it, having tried to save the $250, fire gets much, much bigger. Similar with chest pains and that, with people with heart attack, oh, I'm not going to call, it costs $250. I'll wait it out, and then by the time they do call, it's too late. So I think, much like police calls and fire calls, that shouldn't be in there.
Again, that's a call where there's no service, there's no charge. So it's just when they, if you look at it, service charge for BLS, in other words, they're going to actually get some basic level of service. So that's the difference. What we're trying to do is once we provide a service.
No, if they call, if a kid falls off a bicycle, the way I understand, kid falls off the bicycle and some bystander calls in the ambulance, someone's going to have to pay $250, correct?
Well, I think what we have to do, if you folks pass this today, the way the resolution states, we'll have to work internally to figure out what the qualifiers are to be charged. Because those are some of the things we've tried talking through and figuring out how we would do that. Because a lot of our calls are generated by, you know, Mr. Pavick sees Dan fall, he calls 911 because he's worried about you. We get there, you wanted nothing to do with us. We would have to somehow develop internal policies that dictate what qualifies to be charged as $250 or the $450.
I can see the $450 if you do some stuff, but to put a fee on someone just for calling the ambulance, I don't agree with. That's the way it reads there. That's the way it reads. We don't, it says service charge and we didn't charge before, and now you're going to charge $250.
No, it says service charge BLS.
Can you clarify those two sets of letters?
So again, ALS is advanced life support, so that means we would be giving you medications.
Okay.
So there's really only one instance that we do that and don't transport to the hospital. That'd be with diabetic type patients.
So one of the trigger points would be is medication. The moment medication, that steps you into ALS.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
BLS, what would step you into that would be us giving you bandaging, things like that, possibly splinting an extremity.
Consumables.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Correct. So once you're providing the service is when you see the charge.
So if you
So if someone
arrive,
calls and shows up and they don't want any service, there's no charge.
no materials expended in any way, shape, or form, there should not be a charge unless there's extenuating circumstances.
Yes.
Can I clarify that? So if somebody calls in with chest pains,
Yes.
you go there and you verify that it's not a heart attack, it's not a problem, you have not, quote, provided any bandages or services or medication, would that individual be charged?
Service.
Yeah.
That'd be, again,
Just have a policy for it, yep.
Okay.
right. We'd have to develop the internal policy on what's going to qualify to trigger these charges to somebody. You know, to do that, to rule out somebody having a heart attack, we're using the cardiac monitor, you know, EKG supplies, things like that.
Okay, so then you're using equipment, using supplies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Don't you think the policy should be formed before you pass the ordinance?
Was in the committee.
Well, not,
Pretty much.
we hadn't got to that detail. There's,
I guess what we can say, and clarify if I'm wrong, but really what we're saying is that once we're starting to draw down supplies, bandages, EKG stuff, once we initiate that type of thing, that was a trigger for the charge, is what we're saying. But if you want, I mean, we could specify that if you want, and we could postpone that. But again, that was the main idea, is once we trigger some type of a treatment, that triggers the charge.
See, perception is reality, and I feel that if you're going to have a $250 charge out there, basically everybody's going to believe that, and then they're going to not call. Same with fire departments, same with police departments. I don't think either one of them have a call cost when they first get called. I don't think, anyway, in the county.
not to my knowledge.
Yeah,
no.
so why would you on the ambulance?
And we don't. I mean, that's not the intent. The intent is when you provide a service.
Susan?
I wonder if you'd share, I think you provided this at some committee meeting, if you'd share what it costs for a call to come in and for you guys to be on the road.
$1,234 for 2017. Every call with the total number of calls divided by our gross budget is $1,234.
Thank you.
Helen?
So when you get called to pick up a fall at home, is that the $250?
No, we're saying no to that now.
You're saying no to that? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that's the elderly, and then also you're on people's lifeline response or first
Yes,
alert
ma'am.
response.
Yep.
So falls will still be covered. And then I heard from Jake Erickson that you and the ADRC are going to be working together closely.
Yeah, we are. So the Regional Trauma Association that's established through the state, they piloted the program with Green Bay Metro Fire. It's a fall prevention program, and it puts an app in the responders' hands that if they're willing and looking for the help, so they're not falling as often, we can get them in touch with the right resources much quicker. So we're in the very beginning stages of that in the county, but we hope that's very successful.
Because I know when my mom would fall, she'd wait till 5 o'clock in the morning because she thought I'd be up. And then I'd still have to call 911 to get help to get her up off the floor. And that to me just seems like not a fair situation. So I'm glad to hear that.
Could you clarify one of the footnotes?
Yes, sir.
The department will bundle supply charges into the base rate, starting with approval of this resolution. What are supply charges being bundled?
So the way we need to do it right now is we're doing them separately, and a lot of insurance companies won't cover those separate charges, so they find they're above the allowable expenses. What is acceptable by Medicare standards, which kind of dictates the rest, is if we bundle the supplies into the base rate, they become covered costs for us.
So give me an idea of what's a bundled supply.
We would take, if you use an IV catheter, IV tubing, an IV start pack, the bag of fluid, we take the total of that cost and we add it to currently the $815.
By patient use?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah,
it's not, you're not taking a flat supply charge and
No.
add it within the fee. It's based on what's used on a particular call.
Yes, sir. And then that's added to that, currently that $815. So say it's, $85, it'd make the base rate $900, as opposed to $815 plus the supplies. Does that make sense?
Got it.
All right.
David?
So to clarify then, what you're really doing is for billing purposes, you're bundling it all together.
Yes, it gives us a better chance at recovering more money.
Right.
Biz?
I think a lot of your accident calls are not called in by victims, they're called in just by concerned people. They see an accident, they dial 911 and say, if you send an ambulance. So you get there, and maybe one of the persons involved in the accident, you put a Band-Aid on or an ice pack on a bump, but you don't transport. Is that a $250 charge for that person?
If this goes forward, yes, that would be.
But that $250 and that would be it?
Yes, sir.
Dave?
Yeah, I guess it was 3 or 4 months probably at least that the Emergency Services and now the Public Safety Committee has looked at this, and the administrator and Aaron have done some background work looking at other communities and come up with some average numbers of those communities, and that's part of our basis here. I think we need to remember that almost 50% of the time when the ambulance is going out, there isn't a transport involved, and that puts another crew on call or bringing in other people to cover, and so there's a lot of costs associated with that. And if we want the emergency for our truly serious situations that arise, there might be a few less calls, that's true, but it might be a benefit as well.
Joel?
I guess as a chair of the committee and having been involved in this a long time, I think that, this is my personal opinion, I was the only one on the committee that did not vote for this new fee schedule. And it was solely based off of the fact that we are now attempting to start charging for the BLS. And I don't disagree with all the comments and conversations that have come out of this. I just feel that the example of, somebody falls or somebody else calls it in and they're being charged for it, that person might not have called. Or if it's a Band-Aid, that's an awful expensive Band-Aid to come there. You know, part of doing the business, our taxes are paying for the operation of the system. And, you know, we're paying X amount of money on all of our tax rolls to have all services provided to us, whether it's EMS, police, whatever. I was ecstatic to know that we got rid of the fire service charge that was on here originally. And like Dan had said, there's no fee for law enforcement on here, but yet they provide first aid sometimes and are using bandages too. Does that mean that ours are worth more expensive than theirs? I doubt it. There's a lot of BLS calls, and I do believe, especially in my community, and you know, everybody else has their other opinions, but I believe that people will deter from calling if this was to go forward, because like Dan said, they're not going to hear on the street is $250 when 911 is called, because they're not going to know the gross details of what's going forward. So I am not a supporter of this solely on the fact of the BLS charge. If that was not on this list, I'd support it 100%, because I agree with that. And now, I mean, it's just, that's my opinion. And, you know, I haul ambulances all the time on the ferry just from the island. I can't speak for the rest of the peninsula, but there's a lot. We all know that. But to charge somebody to go do something like that, and the lift assist, you know, that was brought up by Laura early on, and I agree with that. But that's an argument and a fight that should be done with the nursing homes. And it's frankly ridiculous that, you know, that's even happening in the first place. But, so as this list stands, I still will not support it today for what that's worth, unless that BLS charge is off of there. That's just my take on it.
Helen?
I had a question too on the, why is the BLS non-emergent more than the BLS emergent? Did that have something, did I miss something?
Those are transports.
Well, non-emergent would be
So
a lesser.
we very rarely ever do non-emergent transports. Those are, we're fourth in line to help at the hospital for transferring patients to other hospitals. That's where those charges come in play.
Okay.
And that's very, very few and far between.
Nissa?
So in the case of like the service charge ALS, for instance, you know, you always hear the horror stories of especially retired people on limited incomes that break up their medication and, you know, spread it out through the month so they can actually not get a full dose but get something. My concern is if somebody's already struggling for, you know, diabetic meds, heart meds, whatever, and they have an issue and then they call 911 hoping that somebody will bring them something that could save their life, that they just won't, because $450 is a lot, you know, and if you can't already afford whatever your medication is, granted, you know, calling 911 is not something that people should do just, you know, frequently for, you know, but my concern is if somebody already can't afford a medicine to keep them alive and they're hoping someone can save them, they're not going to call because they can't afford the $450, let alone whatever medicine keeps them alive.
Dan?
I'll make a motion to amend the resolution to drop the BLS, the second line from the bottom.
Second.
Discussion on the proposed amendment. David?
A variation of it. Take the scenario where somebody else makes the call. The ambulance arrives at the site. The person that is there may not have made the phone call, just needs basic equivalent of the service charge BLS requirements. Are they told up front that if we provide bandages or something, you will be charged?
Going forward, they would be. We'd have to make them aware of that.
So they would be given the opportunity to assess their own personal opinion of their condition.
Yeah, you know, and with that puts my folks in a very precarious spot. Their job is to provide patient care. Next to, when you call 911, your first concern is obviously your immediate medical problem, right? Running right behind that for everyone is the cost. We know that. We know we are an expensive service to provide to our taxpayers. And it's expensive to go, and insurance is different for everybody. Whether it's Medicare, things like that, that's all different variables to know. So that's always an upfront concern. What we have always been able to say now, One of the benefits we do provide to people that come with us is if they are not able to afford their bill after insurance pays what they can, we do allow 0% payments at what they can afford. Now, as a point of reference, somebody on Medicare and on Social Security, they aren't going to have very little to, if any, disposable income to cover this cost. As another point of reference for you, last year in 2017, 67.8% of our patients were Medicare. That's a big percentage, but we would have to make that change and make it very clear up front that, you may be responsible for any services provided.
One other question then about that. And it matters to this county, what percentage of those calls that you go on are actually residents? People are paying property taxes or rent or whatever, as opposed to the people that have come up for the weekend are not. In other words, people living here are already paying cost of that service to some degree. So what percentage is not basically covered by those people?
Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you to that. We've tried to dig out the research out of our reporting systems, and we haven't been able to get a very good number because it goes back to what we have our mailing addresses, so that isn't always accurate to reflect taxpayers versus non-taxpayers.
Because I do have an issue to some degree with this minimum fee, but ultimately we have to remember that in our economic part of the world, an awful lot of our expenses are related to people that do come here.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Laura, did you have?
Yeah, I'd like to add some comments. I think this is wonderful from bringing this subject up so many months ago and all the work that the committee has done to bring this forth. I think that is very reasonable. As somebody that's worked in EMS and a registered nurse, I've always been taught that as soon as you touch a patient, you have assumed liability. That is liability that comes with a price tag. However you want to look at that, I think that's part of why this negotiation and talks coming forward with either service ALS or service BLS. Also, that service BLS charge of $250 is, I do believe, a number that I proposed quite some time ago, and that is actually below the average of what other services do provide. Most services in the area or in the state do charge services, and they make patient contact and actually provide treatment. As a medical professional, just doing hands-on, we provide assessments and treatments from being medically skilled. So I do believe that there should be some sort of charge with that. I don't believe people deter from calling because they usually don't even know what the charges are going forward. If they can't afford to pay, they don't pay. If there's an emergency situation where somebody needs a life-saving med, but it's a chronic illness, that will be on and be far after that one call, that will need to be adjusted and taken care of in other means. And there is other ways to go about that with your doctors and facilities. So with that, I would like to propose, if I can, a motion as is to accept this as is.
Well, that's right.
But first, we got to vote on that.
You have to vote on the amendment.
So we'll vote on that, and then I'll
Vote
make
on
that
the amendment
motion.
first. Helen?
Just one other thing about the patient, because number one, we're one of two counties that actually run an ambulance service, an emergency service. We're not a private company, so I think there's a difference. Each one of us, like Joel said, is paying into this company. The other thing is, used to work in the hospital, was on the ER receiving end, but also worked for many years in home health. And when you talk to older patients and families, and we were talking about, somebody that's 85 and home from the hospital or has issues, generally the last year of life is the most expensive, whether it's hospital, doctor, emergency calls. And frequently their transportation to the hospital, and it might be 40 minutes down or so, or up, is maybe a spouse who's in their 80s. They may not have any other transportation, and once they get hit with one bill because maybe they are transported to the emergency room, they're not in any position to really know how emergent this is. So for them, the transportation down is really a lifeline. whether they're kept at the hospital or not. And I know that sometimes you can be transported and get the bill. People get a bill once, like you said, a lot of people are on Social Security. They get a bill once, they're not going to call. And so when you look at who really is at the center of this, which is the patient or the person that's injured, I do agree with Joel. I think that this is a county-run facility, and whether it's on par with emergency services, the fire department, the sheriff's department, and I really think that when you look at who really is important here, and I realize there's a cost involved, but I really am not in favor of the BLS services, just because of the pressure that it puts on generally elderly people or people who are frail, people who have the type of medical issues where it really is important for them to be able to make a call. Whether that call is right or not, they're frequently not the ones that are able to really understand sometimes whether they need. As a nurse, I can't tell you how hard it was sometimes to convince people to make that call to 911 so they could get a transport from Sister Bay in the middle of the night down to the emergency room, and how important it was for them to go.
Susan?
Because this service, which I believe very strongly in, is an expensive one and only relies on the tax levy and user fees. We don't get grants like soil and water or whatever. I do believe in user fees, but it seems like the crux of the matter is this one charge. And so my thought would be, if we were to vote for this amendment and take that charge off now and allow the committee to give the department time to come up with that policy, they could bring that back to us when it's more defined as to where that dividing line is. And then, but, I mean, we could go forward today with all of the rest of it, because I do believe, you know, it's an expensive service we provide, and, you know, as an elderly person myself, I fully expect to get billed for things. It's a decision you make. I realize that sometimes people don't make the decisions, they're made for them or they're not capable of. But I guess I think user fees are a helpful way of offsetting some of the costs of these. So I guess I'm inclined to vote for this amendment, if only to get the rest of the things passed and allow the committee to spend more time if they wish to work out that policy and then bring it back if they choose to, would be my thought.
Can I follow up to that quick?
Sure.
As a follow-up, this hasn't been reviewed, our rates, anything, since 2013. It went through committee. Prior to that, the resolution before this was quite a while. Going forward, we intend, as the department, to bring this back to committee every year with better data, things like that. So just as a follow-up to your point.
Laura?
I have a question. With all the reviews that happen comparing this emergency service with other municipalities, other services that are not private, is there anyone that's not charging for BLS?
Yeah, Green Bay Metro Fire, De Pere Fire, and there was a third one.
For Northeast Wisconsin, is that what?
Yeah, but Green Bay Metro, De Pere were not charging those calls. Now, Green Bay changed a lot of their fees, increased their transport fees quite significantly because they hadn't done that. But those are the two that are jumping out in my head.
And are they charging for ALS then?
Transports.
Just
Bear
as
with
a
me
comparison.
1 second. So Green Bay Metro Fire, no. De Pere Fire, yes, for the ALS. Washera, yes. Washera was the other one not charging for lift assist either. De Pere and Washera had the BLS rate as well.
And how much are they charging for?
$336 and $255.
guess as a follow-up comment, I mean, thinking about this basically 24 hours a day here for the last 2 months, but like Susan said, I'm not 100% opposed to user fees. I mean, that's life these days. I get that. I guess what I'm hung up on is the $250. I could be more inclined to support something that's, you know, what's it cost on average to run fuel in the truck somewhere for a half hour? You can't argue to me that I'm not going to be swayed that, you know, wages and this and that is all part of this cost. It is at the end of the day, but that's being paid whether somebody's on the ambulance or they're sitting watching TV on their break. So the fuel is a logical expense. So maybe it's $75 or $50 or something is a more logical number for a BLS call for me. That I would support. But $250, absolutely not. I mean, that's just the way I feel. Because, like I mentioned earlier, at some point in this equation of all services, we're paying for that as a county, as an individual, in our tax base. And that's what's driving me more towards not having to do it. The ALS side, I have no qualms with that. You're using high-tech equipment, you're using drugs, you're doing needles, all this and that. So it's strictly the BLS thing for me, and the 250 is too steep too rich for my blood. That's what this boils down to for me.
So let me try and surmise something. So if we went ahead and voted on the amendment, and the amendment passed, and the BLS charge was taken off, you could make the assumption that committee would have some time to work with EMS to work through whether or not what a new proposed BLS charge could or should be, and could bring that back at any time to add to the fee. Dave?
That's the direction I'm going, between that and clarification of the policy. Honestly, if I see that justification for the $250, and again, it's not a cheap piece of equipment to roll out with 2 people in the vehicle. For the most part, it is within our tax levy, but it's a cost of doing business, the cost of user fees. And I think that if that gets clarified and a policy gets set up, because there are ranges of items. So to me, if this motion passes, I'd like to see that the committee go back and within the next couple of months, come back with a proposed change and or an explanation of why the fee stands.
Okay. We're ready to vote on the amendment? We'll go to...
Could you restate the amendment? So the amendment would be to put 0
would be to
or
remove
service charge
the BLS service charge. Correct. Is that correct, Dan, Dave?
Yes.
That would be the motion? Okay. So let's go to the voter board. That has passed 16 yes, 4 no, and 1 absent. So the amendment passes to remove the BLS charge from the resolution. So now we'll go back to the resolution. Is there any other comment, questions about the primary resolution as amended?
I'd just like to state something, thank you. Yes, I think gathering more information and data on the service charges of BLS and what our county needs are, especially if those are some of the taxpayers that are receiving those services versus none, because they're already paying for it. So going forward, that would be good data to collect, but obviously it's difficult to collect that when you've never charged in the past.
All right, so we'll go to the voter board for the original resolution as amended. That's passed 19 yes, 1 no, 1 absent. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Okay, so we are now going to change the agenda a little bit. We're going to go down to the new business, our 2018 J1 visa students, Jindajen and others.
Hi.
Grant?
They are making their way up here. We are pleased to have with us today the J1 student workers from Jindajen that are here for the summer working in Door County. what we intend to do is ask each one to come up to the podium, introduce themselves, indicate where they are from, what their major is, and where they're working. So without further ado, so you lost the lottery and get to go first?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Barrow. My name is Barrow. My English is major. Is actually English teacher. My English is not good. I think come to America. I think is really poor. But now I think I'm better because I always communicate with my co-workers and my leader and my employer. I'm very blessed this kind of opportunity. I work in the Lodge. It's a hotel. I like this place. Everyone, especially my employer and a leader. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
And I can assure you that your English is far better than any of our Mandarin. Nothing to be.
My name is Rachel, and my Chinese name is Zhou Mengmeng. And I come here about 1 month. I found everybody's really nice, and but for me, just a few time to speak English. So I'm trying my best because our major is all English, so we really want to improve it. But now I think my workplace is Alpine Resort, a big hotel, and come here I feel very happy. And I asked my manager for more than 5 times because we want to get the same day off come here. Yeah, I think it can open our minds come here and see so many people feel so happy. And I hope you guys can come to China and to have a visit. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yaya. Now I studied in business English. Now I work in Egg Harbor as a housekeeper in Alpine Resort. I'm very pleased to take part in this meeting. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lin. Now I'm working in Alpine Resort in Egg Harbor. I'm very happy to be here. People here is very friendly and nice. I really enjoying time here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and I find many kind people in Door County, and now I'm working for Edison Bay in Bayview Resort and Harbor Inc. And it's happy to be here again. So, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm glad here to introduce myself. And my name is James, and I'm from Jinnazhen, Jiangxi Province, China. And my major is business English. And at first, my job is a dishwasher at Alpine Resort. But my employers, she trained me to the front desk. You know, at the beginning, pick up the phone, get the reservation is very hard for me. It's damage for my confidence. But my employer is very kind of person, and she encouraged me. That's okay. You just that's your first time be another country, and that's good. And he encouraged me, and so I think all of the American people are friendly and very kind, and I'm glad here. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to meet you. My English name is Cassie, and my Chinese name is Gui Lulu. This is my honor to stand here, and we are invited to attend this board meeting. I very thank you. Thank you very much. And I remember when I the first time attend to our boss office, and my workmates asked me, why you choose Cassie as your English name? And I said, because Cassie is my English teacher's name, and I love her. And I found a very happy thing, because I'm a freshman in our college. I have a foreigner teacher class, and our teacher told me, you can get your own English name. I'm so happy I didn't get the Lucky. Why? Because our foreign teacher say, Lucky is my dog's name. So I'm so happy I get Cassie. Well, I know my major is English. I'm so very happy. Why? Because I want to be an English teacher in the future. Or maybe if I can learn English very well, maybe I can be a translator. I think so. And now I'm a housekeeper in Allison Bay, Bayview Resort and Harbor Inn, and I have another girl work with me together. This is my first time to America. I think it's a very good experience for me, because my mother told me, you are 19 years old, so you need depend. Oh yes, you need depend on yourself, and you don't depend on your parents. So you need work by yourself, and you need work hard, and you needn't tell you are tired, because everyone, if you want to be a better man, you need to work harder. So when I came here, I don't have homesick. Why? Because American people is very nice, are very nice. And this is my first time to come here. And my oral English maybe is not very well, but in there, I have opportunity to communicate with each other. It's very good. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
That's it? Yep. Okay. As you probably all know, this is the second summer that we've had J1 students from Jingdezhen. This came about from the delegation that went over to Jingdezhen in 2016, and I think these remarkable young people deserve a lot of credit for being 7,000 plus miles away from home, first time in a new country, learning a new language, and they're all doing remarkably well. So thank you for coming, and hopefully you enjoy your stay in Door County. Thank you. We need a picture. You could go up behind these guys. Yeah.
Should I photobomb it?
Sure. David's got to get right middle. No, yeah.
There.
Yeah, I know.
It's, yeah, it's different. Commander, they're much more real.
Yeah, there we have it. Yeah, Joe.
We're going to continue on the special reports. We're going to move to the door-tran presentation.
Joe? You want to talk to her?
Good morning. No, I'm not Pam Bush. That's on your agenda. Pam couldn't be here today, and she sends her apologies. I do have some brochures, if anyone is interested in either taking them back, thank you, back to your offices, back to your constituents, or any kind of information that you need. I also have bundles of them as well. I didn't bring a PowerPoint today. Joe and I are going to kind of tag team. There's a big misconception of who's door-tran and who's door-to-door. So we want to try and take some of that down today and kind of inform you of what the differences are and what door-tran provides as services. Based on services provided, we find that elderly, disabled, and low-income residents are primary users of public transit. We do serve everyone. The Wisconsin Plan for Older People last estimated that Door County's population will be more than 44% age 65 or older by 2035, which will be the highest percentage in the state. At this time, over 30% of Door County's residents are age 60 and over. The United States Census Bureau states 8% of our population is individuals with disability and about 8.5% are veterans. We are nearly surrounded by water, which you all know. Trips can be long. There is no one-stop shop for any one particular person. They looked into like a looper to go up and down the peninsula. Of course, that's not very cost-effective, and it's not necessarily going to line up with people's appointments or things that they need to do. So we also have the year-round island residents that pose a challenge. So to give you a little history of door-tran, United Way did a needs assessment and identified transportation as one of the greatest barriers, which created a steering committee. In 2007, the Transportation Consortium, with over 40 members ranging from government, for-profit, not-for-profit, and businesses, was formed. The Door County Community Foundation grant kicked things off and provided the ability to hire a part-time person to complete this research project. Followed up with a survey from UW Green Bay students, and a call center was launched in 2007. It indicated people were not aware of what services were available. Therefore, the resource guide and website were started. Those are still in effect today, and they're updated on a regular basis. Affordability ranked high at the UWGB project survey, so we launched a half-price travel voucher program. Another way to make transportation affordable was to start the public transportation system. That's Joe's baby. Due to the loss of the American Red Cross transportation, door-tran partnered with the County Veteran Service Office to provide the veteran transportation. In 2012, the county-wide volunteer program was launched by door-tran. In addition to the county launched the door-to-door rides connector system that year. In 2014, door-tran launched a vehicle loan program, followed by 2015 gas vouchers, and most recently in 2017, a vehicle repair grant program. We work with quite a few agencies, the ADRC, MTM, Sunshine House, door-to-door rides. It all kind of ties in together. What we tell people is if you have a transportation need, know that there's a resource available called door-tran. Very simple number, 743-9999, and we can answer questions that you may have or refer you to someone who may know that answer or may be able to provide that service. The ADRC is, again, operated by the County of Door, but we do refer quite a few people there. They call up and say, I hear you have free transportation. No, we don't have free transportation. There are waivers available, certainly, and we'll get to that with those clients, but everything is kind of tailored. You call us and we kind of walk through a little step-by-step guide of what is the service you're needing and where do you need to go when, that sort of thing. And we can direct them one way or the other, and if it's a program that we provide, we get them enrolled. So we do mention the ADRC to folks because that is just a suggested $1 donation within the city limits, but that is limited to a Monday through Friday gig. We also refer to MTM. That is the non-emergency medical transportation provider. This is not a program by door-tran, it's a program provided by the state of Wisconsin. So that is, you must be eligible and be a Badger Care Plus or a Medicaid recipient. They provide free medical transportation or they reimburse you mileage if you're going. So oftentimes people are going to say, oh, well, I didn't know I had that coverage. Well, if they look in their big, like 70, 100 some page human services, handbook that they get, they'll find like a page and a third that talks about transportation, and not everyone is eligible. Sometimes they'll call and they'll be told, you don't have transportation coverage. That's where door-tran will get involved. We'll call on their behalf and we'll find out why. Could it be that they just haven't updated their annual form with human services with their ES worker? It's entirely possible. Or perhaps they really don't have that benefit, which is great because then we can put them into one of our programs. But MTM you pay for regardless of usage. So the state of Wisconsin pays for each of those recipients every single month, and if they're not using it, MTM is making money. So our job is to make sure that everyone is utilizing that service. The half-price travel vouchers, those are a combination with a partnership with our private taxi providers. If there are folks who are working out in the industrial park and they start or get done at 2 o'clock in the morning, door-to-door is not running. So we have half-price taxi vouchers that's going to offset that cost of them to get home safely. They'll travel anywhere. Private taxis are open 24/7, and they go pretty much anywhere in the state. I think it's limited to the county, but we send a lot of people down to Milwaukee, down to Green Bay with those travel vouchers as well. We work with locally, Choice Mobility. They provide our wheelchair transportation. We work with Door County Cab, also known as One Awesome Cab if you've seen those vehicles, and Jimbo's Express and Shuttle. We also partner with Julie's Country Care Express out of Luxembourg, and we partner with Lamers and Arms of Angels out of Green Bay, and locally we partner with Sunshine House if there's another wheelchair transport that Choice cannot do. So the wheelchair accessibility was a real big piece until Choice entered about 1.5 years ago. Our veteran volunteer transportation, as I said, was dissolved when the ADR or when American Red Cross stopped their transportation, and within about 1.5 months we had it up and running. We provide transportation free to our veterans in the county. We verify it with the County Veteran Service Office that they are indeed a county resident and a county veteran, and then we offer it on Thursdays either to Milwaukee, Columbus, Green Bay, or Appleton. We are primarily going to Green Bay since they opened that beautiful facility, so that has cut down costs quite a bit. We use the ADRC van as long as that's available, or we call Jill and Barb over there at the county clerk's office and obtain a vehicle from that. So that's a wonderful partnership that we can provide, and we have volunteer drivers that are utilizing those vehicles. Our countywide volunteer transportation program is for anyone. We do ask that they be 18 and older due to liabilities, or they can be younger if they're accompanied by their parent or guardian. That one is a sliding fee schedule, anywhere from 10 cents to 40 cents per mile based on their household income. And that can also be waived should there be extenuating circumstances, or reduced. Again, extenuating circumstances. We're currently taking someone from the Northern Door down to a dialysis 3 times a week. If they were to use the public transportation system, it would be approximately $60 1 week. So you multiply that by an endless amount of months and years, it's a lot of expense. So we can charge them that sliding fee scale, and it reduces the trips down quite substantially. That service operates Monday through Friday from 6:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. Because door-tran is a nonprofit, we can't man the phones 24 hours a day, and that would be a requirement to have someone on staff while those folks are on the road. So that just keeps everyone safe, keeps our volunteers knowing that they are indeed supported by our office staff. We have a vehicle repair and purchase loan program. This is a 0% interest program. It is funded by WSDOT through a program called WETAP, Wisconsin Employment Transportation Assistance Program. That program offers a no-interest loan up to 18 months, $3,000 on a used vehicle, or a repair up to $550, a repayment of 6 months. So there's other requirements as far as, because it's related to employment, they need to be working at least 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month. I'm not going to quiz you on this, but it's good to know that these programs exist or that there is something there. But then you know kind of in the back of your mind, hey, this is something that we could send someone to door-tran. It could be your waitress, it could be your daycare provider, it could be your certified nursing assistant or your mother's certified nursing assistant. So, I mean, there's people that you may not even know that are affected by some of these things. They have to be under 150% federal poverty level, and believe it or not, we have those folks up here in Door County. So the half-price gas vouchers, again, this is for folks who are working or who are attempting to find employment. And we do similar to like the unemployment checks where they have to do employer checks every week. We also make sure that they're looking for employment or they have employment. That's limited to folks up to $100 at a cost of $50 to them annually. And we ask that they complete the application. We ask where they're traveling to and from. And then we do a mileage calculator based on the price of gas. Then we can come up with what's it going to cost them to get to and from work until their next paycheck and offer them a voucher up to half price. So the other thing that we have is the repair grants. This was the program that started out last year. It is for folks who maybe are over that 150% federal poverty level, have not started back to work from an unemployment bout during the winter time, or they are on a fixed income such as Social Security or disability, something like that. That goes up to $500, and we offer that them as a gift to them. Unfortunately, there's no endless funding for that, so it's a first come, first served as we have the funds as well. So again, door-tran is here to help. If you know there's a transportation need, or even if you suspect or you want to know more information, we ask that you give us a call. There's quite a few services that you may find we have, or if there is something that we do not have, we also keep track of the unmet needs. So if there is someone that needs something at 6 o'clock in the morning, or they need to get somewhere that we don't serve, perhaps down the road, if there are opportunities to expand any of our services, that's where it would come into play, as we would look at that list and decide where do we start the expansions. So that's kind of door-to-door, or door-tran in a nutshell, as I'm looking at Joe. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All righty.
I'm going to have her stick around in case you do. Because I'm going to jump in and say a couple of things. I'm going to add to what she presented to you, but there's a lot of confusion often between the difference between door-tran and door-to-door, and they're two separate entities. And I would say when you listen to Cindy talk about what they do at door-tran, I would say if you looked at it as a wheel, door-tran's really the hub of everything related to transportation. And all those little programs and the things they do are kind of the spokes. One of the things that came out of the work that door-tran did is a public transportation system that we run here through the county. That runs through Human Services, and it's the door-to-door ride system. That is a shared ride taxi system, and that taxi system, we currently have at any time up to 7 taxis on the road. Pam, or Jill, thanks. Could you go to the service map for me? And then scroll down a little bit.
What's her name?
I don't know if you can shrink that at all to fit it on the screen, but so we cover the entire county currently with that door-to-door system. It was slowly expanded starting in 2010, and in 2010 we ran for about a half a year. We provided about 5,000 miles. It ran in that orange zone that's in the middle, kind of difficult to see, but that circle, that's the Sturgeon Bay area, that's where it started. Over time it's expanded. It's gone to that next area, which is the green area. Then it went up into part of the northern door. Then we expanded a little bit and got to the very tip of the county. And then last year we added the southern door part of the county. Right now that service, that taxi service, is available in all of the areas. It's a really complicated but great partnership that includes not only the taxi service, but the ADRC vehicle and the Sunshine House vehicles. So you can see some of those straight lines that are connected. Those are connector routes that run twice a day, and those routes are run by either Sunshine House or the ADRC bus. So I could talk about the door-to-door system for a really long time. Needless to say, it's active. It's going on. Last year, we provided in the door-to-door taxi portion of the system 44,000 rides throughout the county. In addition to the door-to-door system and the public transit system, we operate the ADRC bus out of the ADRC. That covers primarily that orange zone that's in there. We go a little bit out into the green areas, but that system, just the bus alone, provided over 7,000 rides last year. So in combination, your public transit system is providing about 51,000. We do all of that by leveraging some state money that we get that requires us to match county money, and then we use both of those resources to get federal money to run the taxi system. I won't go any farther than that because it's really complicated, but that whole system costs Door County tax levy about $18,000 a year to run. So that being said, we also had some things over the years. This has been an influx system since it started. I only got involved in it in 15. In 15, we did some expansion because we had additional money from the state we had to use up. That money ran out, or they told us we couldn't use it for operating expenses anymore after this year. So in 2018, we cut out 76 hours of that taxi service. So again, we're running anywhere from 2 to 7 taxis 7 days a week. In 2018, we cut out 76 hours out of our system, and our ridership is still going up. We're about 2.5% to 3% higher at this point this year in terms of numbers of rides provided compared to last year. So we'll get over 45,000 in that taxi system. It's important in my mind for people to know the difference. door-tran and door-to-door are not the same, but we work on a lot of stuff together. I serve on the door-tran board, so I'm a member of that board. We also have a committee that is called TRIP, T-R-I-P. I have to look down because I don't remember what it stands for. Transportation Resource Improvement Partnership. That is a partnership between a lot of the door-tran board members, a lot of community members. We've got business people on that. We've got Mariah from planning as part of that. We've got folks from the city as part of that. It's a group that's constantly looking at our systems and how they work, and are we as efficient as we can be, and how do we make improvements? Last year, Pam at door-tran wrote a grant to Easter Seals. We got a $100,000 grant, and one of the pieces of that grant is we currently have a consultant looking at this entire system. Part of what we're looking for is there a better way for us to run this? Again, we got lots of players involved in it. door-tran's doing all the volunteer coordination. We contract out to Abby Vance the taxi piece. We run the ADRC piece. Sunshine House runs a portion of this. One of the things we're currently looking at is, can we do a shared dispatch system amongst all of those systems? And so that's part of what we've asked this consulting firm to look at. We'll probably try to roll out pieces of that over the next year or two so that 3 to 5 years down the road, we can improve how our system is working. One of the hang-ups or one of the complaints that I get most often is that the drivers and the system in the taxi system is not really coordinated. So again, we're just constantly looking at trying to make improvements on that. So there are two parts, or there are many parts to this, but they're very distinct in terms of what door-tran does and what door-to-door does. Anybody with any questions about all of that?
I just want to make a comment. This is something that I've watched since long before I was on county board, and I just have to compliment the people, all of the groups, all of the people who have worked on this. It was like, here was this need in Door County, and with our configuration, kind of an impossible task, because how would you ever have the money to possibly help people have a public transportation system throughout this county? And like the little engine that could, they began, and they, through creativity and organizations and people stepping up to the plate, they came up with this amazing amalgam of ideas and systems and people who all do their piece to this puzzle. it's really kind of a miracle that we can actually have a public transportation system in a county this small and with this kind of configuration. And it's really an amazing thing to watch. So my compliments to all of you.
Anybody else?
I wonder if you tell them the cost of a door-to-door ride compared to a private taxi years ago.
Oh, I was going to say, so one of the things she mentioned is currently to ride door-to-door system, it's $3.50 for general public. Individuals who are elderly or disabled ride for half price, so it's $1.75. When we started this system, and I was still, I mean, I wasn't involved in it at all. I was still doing AODA counseling. Some of my clients were paying $5 to $8 to get around town, and that would have been 10 years ago on the regular taxi system. So it was, the other thing is about 80% of our ridership, I think it's 86% actually, are elderly or disabled. So the majority of our riders are getting around for $1.75 for a ride that they used to have to pay much more for. In fact, they weren't moving as much. They weren't getting around the community. The bus ride is $1 per stop. So if you're picking up, somebody's actually going to the meal site, they're going to the ADRC for lunch and going home, it's $1 round trip. If they're going from home to the meal site to Walmart, then back home, it ends up being a $3 trip because each stop they have to pay for. So the system has really been helpful for folks who are on limited income.
Joe, you said it costs the taxpayers of Door County approximately $17,000 a year?
18.
18?
Yep.
If my memory serves me correct, a number of years ago when the bus service, I think, used to travel from Green Bay to Sister Bay and et cetera, I think the county board subsidized them $25,000 a year. I think. I'm not perfect. I'm pretty sure though. Just that, and equate that $25,000 then compared to $25,000 now. And a fantastic bargain.
Yeah, and the books, I mean, it's an expensive program. When I say it costs us $18,000, that's our tax levy. The program is over $1 million to run. That includes Sunshine House, which is included in that factor as a way to help us draw down federal expenses. So again, it's coming from lots of different sources, but it's state and federal money, state money that we've gotten for, I don't even know how long, before I started here 20 years ago, to run the ADRC bus. But the feds have allowed us to use that state money and the local money as the match for the public transit piece. So the folks who put it together really did a great job of figuring out how to leverage what we were already doing to make it expand. So,
great. Thank you very much. Very informative. Okay, we will continue with our special reports. Parks Tours update. Ben?
Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. For most of you, this is probably your first introduction to me. I'm the new park superintendent. Started the Monday after the snowstorm in April, so I got a very cold welcome to Door County, but it's been very pleasant ever since. So, at the recommendation of our Facilities and Parks Committee Chair, Dan Osted, he suggested that I provide kind of a brief overview of what our most recent parks tour involved, just so that the full county board kind of got some perspective on what we're doing over in our department. I know it's a new department. The department was realigned shortly before I joined the staff, so and you may have some knowledge of past parks tours and things like that. So that's kind of what this presentation is all about. So I'll start with our parks tour. I mean, we're very fortunate to have the parks that we do here in Door County. We are approaching 100 years in existence. So thanks to the visionary leaders that we had almost 100 years ago, the visitors and residents in Door County have access to these parks. And it's really fun for me as I'm sitting in the back listening to all of the conversations this morning. We have two of our parks featured on your front images here in the boardroom, Cape Point and Cane Island, so, which happened to be on our tour. So for those of you who may be familiar, may not be, the Door County Parks Department currently oversees the development and operation of 19 county parks. And I apologize for the smallness of that map, but we have brochures and things throughout the county if you want a closer look at that. Basically, our total acreage is about 948 acres. That includes many miles of groomed trails, several boat launch ramps, a few swimming beaches, and a number of other restrooms and other types of picnic facilities. So you can see on the board up there, we went for quality over quantity with our tour. Rather than try to usher our committee to every single park that we have, which would be a daunting task given how spaced out they are and the travel conditions in the county sometimes around holidays, we focused just kind of on the northern portion of the county this year. The reason that some of these places were selected is we either have projects there or they've been on our radar in some of our committee meetings. The one piece that you'll see up there, or the one exception, I guess, is it's listed as hitting property. That actually is not a park. That's property that has come before our committee for consideration for acquisition. So we viewed that just from the roadway as we could. So when I put together our tour, I didn't want it just to be a day of fluff where we're just going to a park. Here's a park, get back in the bus and go to the next park. So I actually made our committee work for it a little bit. So what I tried to do is I tried to kind of, they were each provided a couple informational sheets as well as some questionnaires, which we'll see later in the presentation here. But so I didn't want the opportunity to connect with our committee and actually get them out in the field and looking at some of our parks to slip past us. So it was an opportunity to talk about the vision and mission for our department. We're almost at 100 years, and I want our committee and you as a board to start thinking about what the next 100 years of the Parks Department might look like. So I started with a vision and mission that each of them were provided, and that the vision that we're laying forward right now is that the people of Door County will celebrate and nurture our thriving natural areas and parks as world-class treasures that sustain our region and our state. The mission that we're operating under now is the Door County Parks seeks to acquire, restore, and manage lands for the purpose of protecting and preserving public open space, natural areas, and other landscapes in an ecological healthy state for the education, pleasure, and recreation of the public now and into the future. So what does that mean, and how did I frame this for the committee? Those are kind of our 4 overarching goals within that vision and mission. And it's very generic, as you can see, but those are kind of the 4 overarching goals that we wanted to touch on. So nature, people, economy, and leadership. So for each of those, starting with the economy, where I tried to frame their thinking was that the communities in Door County will value the economic benefits of protected parklands. For the leadership side of it, visionary leaders will bring their expertise and safeguard and expand and bring increased resources to the parks from many different places. The nature aspect of that is native and natural landscapes will thrive for generations, and under people, that everyone in Door County will feel welcome at the Door County Park System and will seek them out for discovery, renewal, and fun. So that previous slide was basically presented to our committee, and what I did is I assigned each committee member a certain goal within that master vision and plan. So every place that they went, every park that we visited, they had these 5 questions that are displayed up there on the board to answer about that specific park. I wanted them to take whatever their specific goal was, put those lenses on, and look at all of our different parks through whatever their particular lens was. Our committee was very receptive. We're very in good spirits, played along with my tour idea, and we got some very valuable feedback. So part of the reason that I'm doing this as well is, our department has been operating under an old master plan that's actually 3 years out of date. It expired in 2015. So one of my priorities moving forward is to develop a new strategic and master plan for our department that will help guide and shape our decisions in the future on how we manage our parks, what type of opportunities that we're going to pursue. It'll also help guide any potential land acquisition or expansion, those types of things, capital improvements, et cetera. So these 5 questions were asked at every stop that we did along the way, and each committee member had a different focus along the way. So what I'm showing you here on the screen is exactly what was given to our committee members to help them kind of put those lenses on. So the first pie wedge of that puzzle was the economy. And visitors to the parks are an important market for small business that appeal to trail users, other outdoor enthusiasts. Also, we heard earlier today on the economic development side of things, attracting a workforce here and retaining them is also a very critical factor. So, the Door County Parks can collaborate on different marketing campaigns with neighboring communities, combining nature attractions with small business growth. So there's a lot of economic opportunities. So our committee members that were assigned that pie wedge, when they looked at each park, they were looking for opportunities where those parks could either improve or where they satisfied the vision and mission within that economic pie wedge. So the other aspect of that is people. And if you recall, the people aspect was that everyone would feel welcome at Door County Parks. Most people, I think, when they hear a statement like that, they think of ADA compliance or people with physical disabilities, and that is totally encompassed in that pie wedge as well. But we also heard, actually right before I spoke, about transit challenges within the county. Obviously, that might be a limiting factor for people to access our parks as well. We also heard about an aging population. They're less mobile. It's more difficult to get into these different places. And I think a lot of people tend to think of parks as, younger families or outdoor enthusiast locations. And I want people to think in a broader sense or broader terms. So, the first question that was asked for each committee member was, does this fulfill the vision or mission of our department? So people is one aspect of that. Some of the people that I have in my mindset that don't always get included in that are people with like autism and spectrum disorders, people with a mental limitation. The reality is the parks belong to the public, and we need to guarantee that every Door County resident and visitor has the opportunity to enjoy and benefit from the inheritance that was left behind almost 100 years ago for us. Nature, I think, is fairly self-explanatory to most of you. Most of the responses that our committee generated about what they were most proud of at each park was some natural aspect or natural feature that park had. It's the wave action at Cave Point. It's the views of the water at Ellison Bluff. So the natural resources are what people are coming to the parks to see. That's usually how parks are determined on where they're going to be. So it only makes sense that nature is a large component of what we do. You know, a lot of our parks are very unique, and some of them are offer the only locations in the state where there is natural beauty that is side by side with the attraction of a Great Lake. We have some sensitive flora and fauna that exist in our parks, so I think our visitors and our residents enjoy seeing all of those things, so there's a responsibility to us, obviously, to consider those in making parks decisions. So last aspect of this is leadership. And I will say, initially, leadership is such a broad term. You can see kind of some of the things that I put in there to kind of shape some of the thinking for our committee members. Obviously, to achieve any plan, let alone an ambitious master plan or strategic plan, you know, will require creative thinking, being progressive in some fashions, and you know, managing natural areas, parkways, and facilities that exist within them. It's sometimes complex, sometimes a long-term activity. You know, so what I am envisioning with the leadership perspective of this is obvious. It's our committee, it's the full county board, it's, you know, the administrator, our department head, but as well as advice and active participation of skilled leaders that have a focus on the long-term ecological and financial health of the parks. And that might be through you know, unique partnerships with places like the Door County Land Trust or the Nature Conservancy, or even, you know, in terms of the accessibility for people is conversations with the ADRC. Where are the challenges? Where are the pinch points that we see in the county? How can we offer better service through our department to meet the needs of that population of the community? So, you know, what do I intend to do with all of these responses that we generated through our committee meeting? Obviously, I mentioned it earlier, the plan is to develop a plan. You know, it's come up in some of our passing conversations at our committee meetings of, you know, developing and creating a decision model for land acquisition. Where are our priorities? What do we want to focus on? And that's why those 4 overarching goals can help guide that path a little bit. So obviously it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to be working with the planning department. It might be working with outside vendors, working with different partnerships, and figuring out the best way that our department can serve the constituents in Door County, as well as the visiting population as well, because we have a very good contingent of that. Obviously, I like to dream big. I'm a big thinker, and you know, ultimately, what I envision is that in 25 years from now, you know, we're right at about 948 acres. I'm assuming somewhere in the next 25 years, we'll acquire another parcel of property and push ourselves over 1,000 acres. You know, that we become, you know, we're known for world-class parks. I think when I talk about my job to people that don't live in Door County, the first question is, well, do you manage Peninsula State Park? Do you manage Whitefish? People know the state parks here. They don't know the county parks as well. So my hope is that when parks is mentioned with Door County, is that the county park system is in that conversation or leads that conversation moving forward. And then if we are touching on all of those other goals, we can become a model for other departments, other parks departments around the country on how do we make this more accessible, how do we touch on those, you know, more isolated populations, how do we manage these sensitive habitats in a natural state. You know, so I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity within our department. So that's kind of a broad overview of our tour and kind of where my mind is in terms of our department. And I guess I'll leave it if anybody's got a question or concern.
Any questions, comments? Linda?
That wedding or weeding property that you mentioned on the opening slide,
Yes.
where is that and what is it and how many acres? And
So that is, and Grant can jump in if he wants because he's part of this process as well. So that's a parcel of land that historically were in a position to purchase about 10 years ago, I think it was, and it was largely dependent upon funding for a grant. We're talking about, they have 72 acres of property up there. They're considering selling us 59 acres of it. It's just to the south of Door Bluff Headlands Park, which is in the town of Liberty Grove. So we're exploring that possibility, and I think there's good opportunity there. Grant has reached out to the family, so we're still kind of in the preliminary stages of that process.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just want to commend you on your vision, what you finished off with there, as far as bringing Door County parks to the forefront. I think out talking with the public on a regular basis, that's exactly what we hear, is people are aware of those state parks. And what an untapped gem that we can really put in the forefront. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. Be back at 11. Okay. Let's go back into session. Ken's in a hurry. I'll let you figure out which one. We're going to skip down to ordinances. First will be a report amendment to the zoning map of Sebastopol, Suwalski. Did I say that right?
Suzuki.
Okay. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion, we accept the report from the Door County Board of Supervisors for an amendment to the zoning map of Sebastopol.
Second.
And I think Mariah left, but this is a pretty simple one. It's Jane A. Suzuki, the trustee, petitioning to amend, let me get this, to the detailed zoning map of the town of Sebastopol, 0.98 acre parcel from estate zoning district to the single-family residential, and well, it says where the location is. The explanation is the rezoning request for the parcel to be changed to a single-family resident district zone, divide the parcel such that a portion of the lot can be sold to and combined with the lot directly to the southwest at 4426 State Highway 57. The minimum lot size in the estate zoning district is 5 acres, which would not allow for the transfer as proposed. And this is just a simple matter of one neighbor wants to sell a portion of land to another neighbor, and they had to rezone it in order to facilitate that sale. So, and there's a map there on 66, is it? Yep, on 66 it shows the parcel, so.
Questions, comments, discussion? Linda?
I can just comment that the Town of Sebastopol Plan Commission and the Sebastopol Town Board unanimously supported the zoning change.
Right.
And as Mr. Fisher indicated, Mrs. Suzuki wishes to sell a small triangular portion. If you look on the map on page 66, that small lower triangular portion. And yes, all of those properties are zoned ES, but you can see that none of them fit that minimum square footage. So SF20 is a more suitable zoning.
Right.
Any other? By voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Fisher?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to approve mandatory zoning ordinance 2018-14.
Second.
Second. And that is just the zoning ordinance relating to the report.
Any questions on this piece? Because it's an ordinance, we will go to the voter board. Linda? That's passed, the vote of 20 yes, 1 absent. Ordinance 2018-15, amendment of Chapter 12 Door County Code.
Also move.
I'll second that.
Are you ready? Page 68.
Yes.
Basically, what this is right now, there is no camping in the county parks, period. And what brought this forward was that on Cane Island, every spring, a group of Boy Scouts out of the Milwaukee area come up there, camp, and then do a lot of maintenance work. And technically, they should not, because there's nothing in the ordinance. So this ordinance, I think, is described, the park superintendent or the parks director can give permission to go camping in the parks if needed. There's a little quirk in it that, not the camping end of it, but the parks close at 11 p.m. and fishermen coming in or leaving before sunrise isn't explained very good in here, and I don't know what to do about that.
What's the fisherman issue?
Well, the parks are open sunrise and close at 11 p.m. And a lot of fishermen leave before sunrise, so they're not supposed to be in the parks. Like Schuler's Dock and that, they're leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. They do not penalize them now for it, but it is in our ordinance that they could. And at 11 o'clock, they come in after 11 o'clock. And I don't know how you could possibly do that other than to say you're not going to really go after those people, but when it's written down there, you might get a park superintendent that will go after them, so. Don Ninus is the one that called my attention to that.
I can explain a little bit. What we tried to do, the existing ordinance 12.02 dates back to 1988, and what you will see by its length and some of the narrative in there is we've over the years created exceptions to the general rule. What I did with the revised 12.02, which is unusual for attorneys, is shorten it up. And in paragraph C, rather than have the exceptions in the ordinance, the exceptions to the opening and closing hours, which would address Dan's concerns, and also prohibited or restricted uses, can be granted by request by the Door County Facilities and Parks Director or the Park Superintendent. And that seemed a more logical way to deal with it, is in the ordinance itself set the general rules and then allow exceptions to be granted by staff rather than trying to graft all these exceptions in the ordinance, which really doesn't make sense over time. So that's the way it's drafted, and I think that giving the staff that ability to grant exceptions will alleviate the concern that Dan expressed. And I think in talking with Wayne and in talking with Ben, they would intend to continue to grant the exception to allow fishermen in and out of the park. Another request we had that led to this was people that wanted to be in the park to take night photography. So.
Megan.
I'm hoping I can get a little more background on this as well. So those hours, I'd say I'm probably at one of the lakeside parks at least an hour before sunrise more than once a month, because that's when the colors start if you want to go watch the sunrise. So I feel like that could have a major effect on those lakeside parks possibly, or it could end up becoming an issue with that time frame. The other thing too, not to get overly personal about it, but I get done with work shift at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I need to go soak my bones down at Portage. And that happens on a regular basis on the lakeside. So I guess I'm personally, and also for our visitors and our residents, I'm curious as to what we're trying to deter between 11 and a half hour before sunrise.
This hasn't changed. This was a rule that's been in effect since 1988.
So I've been breaking the rule? Yes.
So
Correct.
what we've done is
You're on the record
provided
now, too.
in the ordinance for staff to make an exception, and a common sense exception.
Yeah.
I honestly, and I can't speak for the county board, but it's fairly common for county parks and municipal parks that are run by local units of government to have opening and closing hours, trails, and it's simply to prevent people from perhaps doing things they wouldn't do.
Sure,
later.
parties, camping. I understand the parties and camping portion. I guess I'm curious about the rest of it. If we're making exceptions, it's opening a door, which I love. That's fantastic. I'll bring my phone and say I'm taking pictures. But I'm curious as to what other sorts of exceptions might be allowed.
We want to leave that entirely to the discretion of the staff because they're the ones who are going to have to administer it. I think it's simply poor policy to draft exceptions into an ordinance because then sort of the squeaky wheel gets the grease versus somebody can call Ben or somebody can call Wayne and say, hey, this weekend my group wants to camp at this site for this purpose, and they can say yes or no. From my perspective, I think the important thing is that staff knows in advance what people may or may not be doing, and then can exercise what we trust is common sense in enforcing or not enforcing the provision. So the intent here is to open that up through, as I said, the granting of exceptions by staff. We could certainly do it the other way, but then we'd be back here every other month saying, Grant wants to do this, Ken wants to do that, Dave wants to do this. And this way, it's left to the sound discretion of the people that we pay to operate our parks on a daily basis.
And I know this is a different animal, but I know there's a very forward, progressive community called Sister Bay, Golden Door, that after they redid their waterfront, there was a lot of call for doing things because we had posted hours, just like 11, and they eliminated the hours, and at 11 o'clock it just became quiet time until 5 a.m. in the morning, but it allowed people to come and go. And I was actually kind of surprised at the amount of use that the park and the waterfront actually got late at night. You got a lot of workers got off at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and they go down and spend time in the park or on the waterfront.
Yeah.
They were quiet about it. So just anyway.
So you leave.
Dave.
So to take a scenario using the boat docks, personally, I like the rewrite. Cleaner and gets dollar values out of the picture, which I never like to see in ordinances. But a scenario, a gentleman on Saturday decides he wants to go at night walleye fishing, leaving Shooter's Dock, leaving at 6 o'clock in the evening. How does he accomplish getting written permission to come back at 2 o'clock in the morning?
I believe that, I don't know if Wayne's here, but Wayne would have the ability to say that during fishing season, fishermen can make use of the boat launch facilities during any time of the day.
So that would be posted in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I mean, in the way it is right now, they're technically violating the ordinance.
Exactly, and a lot of people do.
Right.
And ice fishing is another example of that.
Dan?
I really have a problem with that, in that you have to get written permission. It says written permission, period. It doesn't say verbal permission, or it's going to be just not overlooked. And don't ask, I don't have a solution to that. This came about because of camping, which is a specific thing, and people pre-planned camping, so getting written permission for things like that, it's a great idea. But I don't know how you cover the fishermen, for instance, or the camera people, or whatever. Here it says you got to have written permission to do it, so.
Again, I think Wayne can issue a written exception at the beginning of the fishing season saying that for the docks that have boat launch facilities, they can be used for that purpose throughout the season. It's an imperfect, it's a step in the right direction, but when these issues came up, when we looked at the code, it was outdated, and we were just seeking to update it to make it better and maybe a bit more user-friendly.
I think we might be missing the whole point of what we're trying to accomplish here. It really wasn't about fishing. It was about a service organization trying to provide a service in the best interest of the county and the public trust on Cana Island. And a vehicle to allow the department to let that service organization do that because the current code did not let us do that. We've been doing that secret behind your back for many, many years. So I came to the committee and said, hey, give me a vehicle to let me do that. So this was the vehicle to let us do that, to give them permission to hey, write a letter and let that service organization do that. I'm not advocating camping in parks by any degree. And this isn't to keep fishermen from fishing. So if you leave before the docks are closed or the boat ramps are closed, by all practical purposes, it was your intent to come back by 11 o'clock. Force majeure says you couldn't, so you couldn't. And the law says that we can't do anything about that. Whatever time you come back, right? We don't know what happened while you're out there. You broke down, you have an emergency, whatever. We don't know that. Portage Park is not a county park, I'm sorry.
No, I don't just go to Portage, I know.
Right, so, and what people do after hours, they're gonna do after hours. That's up to the sheriff's department to come through and find you. Quite frankly, we're not out there patrolling the parks after 11 o'clock, right? We can, if you want me to do that as a county board, we can go and patrol our parks after 11 o'clock, but we don't do that right now. We don't have the staff to do that. So this was just to try and give us that vehicle to make those exceptions and move forward. Because we have a lot of people that are asking permission because our ordinance right now says we can't do it. And it says that I can't let them do it. That's really where we're at.
Dave?
I did recognize that substantially all the items we've talked about are already violations that have just been allowed to occur. I bring up an example that, in my mind, when you review an ordinance and you rewrite it, this is the opportunity to think about those other items that we already historically have recognized. And Grant answered my question about the voting aspect of it.
Kathy?
I got a question for Grant. Doesn't this type of ordinance with the time limits or posted have some kind of enforcement to it? I mean, otherwise, if it's just kind of wide open, I remember the city years ago, when Bay Ship was really going to town and the guys were getting done at midnight. They'd go down to Sunset Park and it was party time and you could almost hear them all over the town. So they had to post something that there was hours. And at least that way, it cleared it out pretty much. But then at least when you went there, you had to say, hey, there's a posted sign there, it says what time it is, and I'm afraid you're beyond that.
Biz? The way I look at this is not a problem at all. This is kind of synonymous with a Wisconsin state statute on speeding laws. If the law says that the speed limit is 55 miles an hour, as a past law enforcement officer, no law enforcement officer would arrest you at 56, and technically you're in violation. 70. They aren't even going to arrest you at 57, 58, 59 probably. They just don't enforce it until it gets out of hand. So this is not a problem here. If someone's in the park, a fisherman, and it's past 11 o'clock, they're not going to go out there. Just like the cop is not going to arrest you for going 1 mile over the limit. It's just crazy to even think about that.
Susan?
So maybe we approve this to rectify the camping issue and then ask the Facilities and Parks Committee to just discuss the hours for a future revision if that was their desire.
Megan?
I would be extremely happy with that. Yeah, thank you. That's what I was going to say.
Helen?
Well, I agree with Biz. You know, you can launch your boat and go fishing and come in, leave early and come late. But if you pull up a camper and you decide you want to camp in the parking lot, somebody can tell you to leave.
And we do that.
Pretty much what it is.
Right, so if security's out there and they see campers, and the sheriff's department does that as well, they ask them to leave, and they do.
if that discussion does move forward with parks and facilities, something like what was brought forward, what's happened in Sister Bay, where quiet time or quiet hours are established or enforced, I feel like that would take care of any issues involving groups, parties, what was described with the folks at Bay Ship happening at sunset, things like that. So.
Anybody else? John?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Osted and Mr. Burley, but I'm not in favor of an ordinance that makes you an outlaw, and then they say, well, we're not going to arrest you. That's my problem.
It's the same with the speeding law. I mean, there's nothing in the law that says that you can go even 1 mile over that limit. The law says 25 or 55 or whatever it says. And if you go a little bit over, you know, and why could they put an exception in there? It's just that it's not enforced until there's not a judge in the world that's going to convict you. You know, and like Wayne says, they might, if a car is in the park and its lovers, and a cop stops and says the park is closed at 11, you're going to have to find a different place to park. They're not going to arrest you. It's just crazy to think that that's going to happen. And even if they did arrest you, a judge is not going to convict you. I can't imagine that he would.
Anybody else?
Are there any services that are different between 11 and sunrise in the park? Like, are you expected to keep bathrooms open if they're closed now? Or, you know, is there liability if you're open versus closed during those hours? That's what I was wondering.
No, things are not locked. It's all still open. There's no extra liability. Everything's still open.
It's all at your own risk.
Okay, let's go to the voter board.
You're in favor.
Well, I think the.
Okay.
Why is it bacon in the
It's your fault.
That is passed, a vote of 19 yes, 1 no. Moving back up to resolutions, 2018-48, capital improvement plan 2019 through 2023. Kathy?
Oh, is it my turn, really? I'd like to make a motion to adopt 2018-48 capital improvement plan.
I'll second that.
Who would like to begin?
I can,
This is Ken and Mark.
oh no, this is the light part of the agenda, so.
Yes.
But again, I understand we're under some time, but I do think it's important enough that we just discuss it. Obviously, there's a lot of expenditure, so it needs its time, but I will try to be concise. I think the best thing to do is this twofold. One is remember that this is just a planning document. Ultimately, you still have a choice to modify these projects as it comes through the budget process. But in essence, by adopting the plan today, you're saying that at least for the 2019 projects, you're anticipating that you're going to see those in the budget one way or another. The other ones, in terms of the 2020 to 2023, those are projects that, you know, again, are a planning document for us to foresee our future capital expenditures and what we're thinking of the future. So I think that with that caveat, let me go, I think the best place to go is on page 7 of 95. And there's just 2 pages, but I think I can go through this pretty fast and give you a brief explanation and then answer any detailed questions. So let me just kind of dive in, and I'm mainly going to highlight the changes, or I'll give you a quick summary of what was included. So again, page 7, if you start at the airport, the replacement of the fuel tanks, that's actually still moving forward, but it's under 50,000, so it was removed as a CIP project. But we're still planning on including it in the budget. It's just a non-CIP project, so that's the change there. For the equipment building, we actually cut that expense in half, and it got divided up between 19 and 20. The reason why we did that is we're going to try to see if we can define the scope of the project further, mainly because it has increased significantly in projected costs. It originally was projected at 200,000 and it went to 250, and now you'll see we're at 500,000. So we're trying to make sure whatever we do what's needed and what's appropriate. But again, we still foresee it as a needed project because the existing building does need to be replaced. Under highway, we did not make any changes because it matches our, I guess, our policy right now of trying to do a certain amount of roads per year, and that helps us reach that that desire. For the clerk of court, there was a project in there for about $55,000 for protective glass up in the second floor. I guess I removed that just based off the recommendation, or my thought process is that we already have both a security scanner plus a single arm guard or two arm guards at certain times of the day that provide, I guess, that level of security. I know they were not pleased with that recommendation, but that's my recommendation to you as a county board, that we have, I guess, other alternatives right now in terms of, I guess, security. The emergency management, that's just an FYI because we actually set that money aside. For the EMS, we actually just cut that down. We're hoping that we can be more effective in terms of how we move forward with the project, and we're projecting that at $800,000 versus the $1 million. The finance, that's, I think, information that's provided to the IS, but we have to replace our finance software. We were informed by our vendor that they no longer will support our current version at the end of the tax year, so at the end of 19, so we have to have it up and running much earlier in the year for our payroll system. Land use services, that's a project that was planned for this year, it got pushed back. That's money is already set aside. The library, that's a shared project with the city. We have, I guess, 2 projects planned in the library. We divided those up in over 2 years, and that's obviously the new chiller. Again, something that needs to be replaced for the building. If you go to the parks, there's a number of changes on this one, and I can kind of go through these quickly. I guess the Horseshoe Bay Cave Center, that was a project where we're looking to provide a facility there. We're still hoping to do that, but we do think we can do more legwork and also look at potential other funding sources and try to narrow that down. So we thought it was reasonable to push that back. Likewise, for John Miles Park, we actually are a little bit short on our projected cost. If you go down a few lines, you'll see we're asking for additional $75,000 to finish the paving. So our thought process would be to do the $75,000 for the paving this year, and then we can budget for the other part of the project for next year. This, again, just trying to divide priorities. Likewise, the stage, we have removed that from the budget, mainly because we're trying to still make sure, I guess, the long-term success of the fair, and it's much more effective, I guess, to lease the stage at this point versus building a stage that's permanent. The last one that, well, for the county park, there's the pavilion that's been on the plannings for LaSalle County Park, and again, that one remained in the budget. And then for the Cana Island, we're still working on phase 3, so at this time we removed, I guess, the phase 4 contribution. I guess one item that did change was the sheriff. They actually had a project that was identified for 2022, and we're actually recommending to move that up. And the main reason for that is related to the John Miles Park plan. Again, right now we use the cold storage for the sheriff, and right now it's at capacity. The thought process would be is to move or construct a new cold storage at the sheriff that's large enough to hold the vehicles that we have in there. And again, if we do this, then that opens up what we consider that building then to the parks for the rest of the storage. And then what we can do is we can move what we're storing right now in the other facilities at John Miles and make those available. So for example, we had talked about trying to make the park more usable throughout the year as far as for groups to use some of those buildings, and that's the thought process behind that. So instead of storing equipment in those, we can open up the other buildings for probably their more intended uses. So that's the sheriff, and we moved that up mainly because of the timing of the budget, which I'll get to at the end here. The Forest Fill Dam, again, the committee asked for $100,000 starting this year and going out for the next, I believe, 4 years for a project to yet be defined. The only reason I recommended removing that is simply because we don't have a defined project. I think right now there's 9 to 12 options that are being considered, that a task force is going to go through the rest of this year and then try to bring back, I guess, maybe like the top few recommendations for the committee to consider. And even at that point, we need to actually make a decision on what we think we're going to do. So to me, I just found it hard to put money aside for a project I have no idea what we're considering doing. So once we define it and we start to see what we're going to do, then I can actually see setting aside funds for that. And then the last one is the administration. Again, you'll see that right now I'm actually taking it out of the CIP. If we would do that project, we're actually working on the phase 2 with the consultant on the government center to work out the pricing and actual design. So that still needs to go through the Facilities and Parks Committee. But if we would move forward with that project, we would actually use unassigned fund balance rather than actually defining it as a project now. In other words, we don't have all the information available, so for right now, I'd recommend that we cut it. And if we do get the drawings back and we do want to move forward with it, I have money set aside, and whatever we're short, I'd recommend what we budget for it out of the undesignated fund reserve. So I guess the big thing to look at on page 9 would then be at the bottom. And you will see that we're recommending approximately a 2% increase overall under our CIP. Again, we started out at about $5.6 million, if I'm correct, in terms of total requests, and we made those modifications to bring it back into really what we try to do, and I have it in the budget model that way of about $4.5 million per year, along with a little bit of an increase budgeted for that, but that's kind of our target, just to make our budget work year to year. That's a short version, sorry.
Questions?
What does the sheriff department use cold storage for?
So right now, what they do is they store all the vehicles that are related to any type of court cases, accidents, repossessions, drug cases and stuff like that. And unfortunately, when that happens, we're required to keep those vehicles locked up, very secure. And many times that could take more than a year just to go through the court system for a lot of those things. So I know right now Steve is here if you want to, I know just talk about it, but I know right now it's at capacity.
A quick clarification on cold storage. Is it actually refrigerated, or is that just a term for
Cold storage just means it's a building that protects it from the elements, but there's no heat or anything else with the building. So it's more or less just a pole building.
And right now the sheriff has to use buildings at John Miles County Park?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? If not, we'll go to the vote board.
I think so.
CIP for next year has passed. 20 yes, 1 absent. Thank you. Are there any oral committee reports? Any review of committee minutes? Vouching claims and bills? Announcements. The next regular county board meeting is set for August 28th at 9 a.m. A reminder, the WCA annual conference September 23rd to the 25th in La Crosse. Today is the last day. If you are not going, but you previously signed up, but you're not going to go, please let Jill know so we can cancel the rooms and not incur the expense. This is your last opportunity to say, I'm not going to go, because you've already said you're going. Okay? The meeting per diem code is 427. Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no further business to be transacted, I'd like to make a motion we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.